My name is David Martin. I'm a builder and a developer. And I want to talk to you today about why and how I changed my perspective on design, how maximization doesn't always work, and how trust is as important to good design as it is good business. A lot of people talk about honesty in design, as they should. A thing should be true to oneself. But I want to focus today on how and why trust is an integral part of great design. Design isn't a tangible thing, it's a process. One that involves many different people trying to solve different aspects of a problem. And if there isn't trust in the design process, then it doesn't work. It's a view I haven't always held, unfortunately. When we started this business, our approach was very different. The atmosphere in this industry was different. Pre-crisis, it was heavily focused by the market itself, and today we question consciously all the industry norms. So let me tell you a little bit about myself and how I came to rethink my approach to design. I'm a Miami native. I know that's a rare statement. This seems to be the town where everybody is from somewhere else. And I did grow up here in the family funeral business. It is a bit strange. Stuff growing up. I saw a lot of death. And I do think it marked me. First of all, it gave me some sort of perspective that empowered me in an unexpected manner. Tough problems didn't really ever seem so insurmountable because I had a pretty good idea of what real finality was. It gave me the courage to throw me into situations that other people that weren't perhaps as aware of their own mortality from such an early age, would maybe not have thrown themselves into. So that was good. But it also made me aware of the fact we have a limited time on this earth. In retrospect, there were a lot of situations that I went into maybe too eagerly. A lot of times where I wanted to run before I could walk. For example, I started a coffee shop when I was studying law and getting my MBA. I suppose I wanted to get some experience and prove some things to myself. I saw an opportunity, I found the right location, and I dove right in. Immediately, I found myself in trouble with the city. I hadn't permitted the building correctly. The remodeling had gone further than I expected. So I had to go to the city and work through those issues. This was really the beginning of my career and a great learning experience. One where I met a lot of people, built great relationships, and learned that if you're honest and show you're willing to do the right thing, people will give you a chance. And that's exactly what happened. I still recall the coffee shop with great fondness. We had over 20 employees. We had very little turnover, and we had a very loyal patronage. It was a real hub in the community. It was a place where people would go for first dates. They would go study, congregate, and have a good time. I remember there was nothing better than driving by the coffee shop and seeing it filled with people. I think where I realized the passion that I have to create environments that enhance people's lives. There's this debate that I live with every day. What makes a better community? What makes a better city? Roads, schools, good zoning, parks, activism. As far as I can tell, there's no simple answer. There are a lot of factors, and there are a lot of hurdles and challenges. One thing is clear to me. Great cities and great design are not a product of any one factor. The same thing is true about creating a great development project. To be able to go through the process and come out with something great on the other side, you need the right people, you need a common vision, but you also need them to consider what's the most important thing, and you need to listen. That, to me, is one of the greatest successes. To be able to listen and not feel like you have to know all the answers to all the questions, but to ask the right questions at the right time. That's actually more important. The truth is, I'm not an expert. I just bring experts together to build better communities. There are things that can be designed by one person. There are things that need many people. So how do you take a group of people with different motivations and priorities and get them to work together? That's been the focus of my career. Here's an example where things didn't go as well. For those of you that don't know, this is perhaps the most meaningful historical building to Miamians. It's a beautiful piece of architecture that started out as a center for publishing community news. It also held the American Red Cross, the INS, and the United States GSA. And it assisted and processed over hundreds of thousands of Cuban political exiles, which immigration did transform this community. It's Miami's Ellis Island. It's a literary beacon of freedom. But I felt anything but free while I was working on this project. It was my own doing. I got boxed in. I got boxed into a design too early. I took my traditional approach, maximized the development rights, rushed into an architect's office, and in a 2 or 3 week period, come out with a design and publish those visuals immediately. What I didn't take into account was the impact that any alteration would have had on the meaning of this building to the community. So our development process was rushed, and a building deserved better. Fortunately, our proposed project never got implemented. What happened was at the end of 2006, we predicted that a change was coming. It was a transformative moment. We went back to our core values. My father really shines in these moments. He urged me to be open and transparent with all stakeholders. And that allowed us to weather the storm and come out stronger than we were entering it. So we stopped what we were working on. That gave me time to understand the significance of this building on the community. We hired an architect from Milan, Antonio Citterio. He had great experience working with historical buildings and modern architecture, someone that I had desperately needed in my I brought him in too late. We decided to donate the building to Miami-Dade College. It was the right thing to do, to give the Freedom Tower back to an organization that has done so much for Miami, and return the building to the community that has imbued its spirit. We started cultural programming, and once again, the building was an open part of this vibrant community. We're very happy with the outcome, but our perspective and development approach, as did the economic crisis. I began to ask the question, is development a right or a privilege? A right in that you own a piece of property, you have certain zoning, certain rules, so you should be able to maximize it, right? Or is the question, does the community have a say? They were here first. They paid for the infrastructure, for the roads, for the neighborhood amenities. So that's the question. Is it a right or a privilege? What I began to realize is the community needs to be involved in the development process. They are just as important as any other pieces of the puzzle. But how do you convince a community that's so adverse to change to not only welcome that change, but to trust the process? Why should they? I would say that that's the same reason that nobody ever says they're from Miami. It's a question of pride. These projects make us proud to say we're Miamians. But there's a cost. The cost is that we as a community have to become invested and involved in their development. And the biggest hurdle in achieving this is to change the way we communicate on these complicated public infrastructure projects. Incorporating community input sounds easier than it is. I struggle with the questions. Is this possible? Can we be better? Or is it always going to be the way it's been? Can we transform traditional developer community communication into something different, something better? No more zero-sum game. Today, more than ever, I think people want to be more rather than have more. And believe it or not, it gives me hope that we can develop the kind of projects that touch people's soul rather than transplanted architecture that just serves as a mere shelter. One of the biggest issues I see and feel is that people have to take an extreme position in order to be heard. There's this cynicism of developers, politicians, perceived corruption. So all you hear is negativity, opposition to this, opposition to that, without any clear bridge to bridge the communication. I speak to a lot of community leaders. They tell me, David, we don't want to go to those meetings. We're not going to be heard. People are not getting involved in the process because they do not trust it. So I ask myself, what can I do to make people feel like they can contribute? I feel that the trust we need to establish is not only the trust in me, but in each other. Right now, the prevailing atmosphere is that nations are competing with nations. States are competing with states. Cities are competing with cities, and neighborhoods are competing with neighborhoods. I find that after the crisis, there's much more collaboration and cooperation in my industry. The question is, why doesn't it extend to the community? Every time there's pushback on a proposed project, the community fractures. These are bruises in our community, and they're continuing to happen. It makes it difficult, if not impossible, to do great design, because developing things at a high design standard requires trust. You need the people to trust you, you need to trust them, and the community needs to trust the process. Take my glass project, for example. Imagine a 200-foot tall building in the middle of Miami Beach's Ocean Beach Historic District, south of 5th Street. We had a legal right, a 1995 building permit, to build a 200-foot tall structure. It was a very bad design, and it had a history of community opposition. We close, not knowing if we're going to be able to revise the design. We hire a brilliant local architect, Rene Gonzalez. We listen to the community and come up with a design that dematerializes as the building goes up. It uses glass to reflect the environment so that it's less impactful on the community. We get Miami Beach Preservation League support. We get the South of 5th Neighborhood Association support. We get all the community leaders to support the project. And the question is, how do we do this when you see all this other fighting on so many development projects? We took a leap of faith. We trusted the design process. We explained our vision, and everyone signed on board. We believed in what we were doing, developed the best possible project, and we gave the community gave us a chance. I believe that it's a privilege to do what I'm doing, rather than a right. And the more that I act that way and make decisions that way, the more I'm able to accomplish. Today, we're seeing changes in this city that were hard to imagine. I think through collaboration and trust, we have a real opportunity to completely transform the places where we live. Thank you so much.